Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Empowering Musicians podcast. I am your host, Michael Manley, and I am recording this earlier in the week as I will be on a plane, sadly leaving the paradise of Punta Mita, Mexico, where I've been on vacation for the last week. And I just have to say, this has been a real interesting lesson for me. My normal way of planning a vacation where I want to sit by a beach and do nothing is to just book the cheapest thing available. And I discovered that if you pay just a little bit more money and do some research, you can find some amazing experiences that are way better than just settling for the cheapest thing you can find. So I'm at this resort called Maraval Harmony in Punta Mita, which is about an hour outside of Puerto Vallarta. It's gorgeous here, and it has the two amenities that I most look for in a vacation, which is serenity and solitude, and the third, which is quiet. So I really appreciate the fact that I'm in this completely quiet, secluded, in the middle of nowhere beach resort. And it's been really clarifying for me. So I appreciate you all letting me record this early and come to you as I'll be on an airplane this coming Saturday when this airs. And I wanted to talk today about pushing past perfect. That's the title that I came up with as I was ruminating and thinking over this week's podcast. And really, what is the problem with perfect? It's something that we all strive for as musicians, as athletes, as artists. It's not a bad thing, right, to be perfect. Like, we all want to be perfect. But what happens when that is the goal? I think the problem is that perfect isn't necessarily the same as being who you need to be and serving the art form that you're serving, right? As an artist, especially. And it's subjective. So the first problem is, whose idea is perfect? Is it yours? Is it the committees of the audition that you're taking? Imagine going into an audition and playing what for you is to your standard a perfect audition and being completely crushed when you discover that the committee doesn't agree with you, right? So it's subjective and it's unrealistic. How often are we perfect? We're going to talk a little bit about that more in a moment. And it's a goal, and as a goal, it's out of your control. So you cannot control outcomes. None of us can control outcomes. All we can control is who we are and our intention in what we do. And so if you try to have a goal as your mission, you're just going to set yourself up for a lot of disappointment and a lot of frustration because it's out of your control. Whether or not somebody judges you as perfect, especially in the situation where you're looking for employment, if you're an actor taking your 97th audition, or if you're a musician taking your 70th audition, whoever's idea of perfect is external to you. And it's going to be something that's out of your control. You don't control what somebody else's idea of what perfect is. It's really, really boring to be perfect. And I'm gonna just reference a great series by Yo-Yo Ma here. He has done a series of videos on a service called Masterclass, which I subscribe to. And Masterclass is an amazing paid video service where a lot of experts from every field kind of give you a series of lessons in whatever their expertise is. And Yo-Yo Ma talks about how he was waiting his whole career to have that one perfect performance, and he finally achieved it. He finally was completely perfect, and he achieved that completely mistake-free performance. And he realized that it was lifeless and boring, and it was completely unsatisfying to him. And that was his kind of awakening to discover, like, what it was that he needed to develop as his mission. And he realized that maybe being perfect is not our goal as artists. It's a great series if you do have access to the app Masterclass. I encourage you to watch that. And it's not sufficient, right? So I've encountered many, I've talked about this before in other podcasts, artists who think that they're perfect or believe that that is what they're to do in a job and in a professional situation. And maybe they end up being miserable people. They're completely inflexible and can't get along with their other colleagues. They absolutely can't collaborate. My favorite is when I was in grad school trying to negotiate, as you do, playing chamber music, which is music of less than, let's say, 15 people, right? So 5, 3, 10, 7, that arrangement. And in a chamber music situation, like a string quartet, you all have to be able to negotiate differences and negotiate your various different interpretations and arrive at something and collaborate, right? And collaboration is a kind of negotiation. I just remember this colleague saying in a rehearsal, somebody was trying to tune something and the colleague said, well, I'm never sharp. And I thought to myself, well, that's not true because all of us are sharp at some point. All of us are flat at some point. And if you go into a situation with that kind of rigid mindset that like I'm right and everybody else is wrong, which is what perfectionism can lead to, it's just going to make you a miserable colleague and make it impossible for you to do what you're really supposed to be doing, which is to make music with other people. And again, being a collaborator, serving the music, none of these things are necessarily helped by being perfect, even if we all agree, which we don't, on what perfect means. So you might go into an audition and think, well, you know what? And I've done this. I've had auditions where I went in and I said, you know what? That was as near a note perfect audition as I've ever played. And I didn't get anywhere, or I didn't get the job. I've done other auditions where I went in and said, you know what? That was kind of sloppy. I missed this note. I missed this note. And I ended up getting out of the first round, or I ended up getting into the finals. You just never know. And all of these things are not necessarily what somebody's looking for or what are going to make you succeed. So you can completely be a perfect performer, note-wise, right? You can be objectively perfect and play like a machine. And the downside of that is you're going to sound like you're playing like a machine, right? So are you serving the music? Is there other things that are missing from your playing if perfection is your goal? And it's very, very selfish, right, to be a perfectionist. It's all about you. It's all about, look at me, look at how perfect I was. Clap louder, please. And ultimately, if you enter into any art form as a performer or a creator from that egoistic point of view of it's about me, you're gonna really not have a healthy career and you're not gonna have a healthy life, because it's really about how we serve the greater good through what we do. So imagine if you are playing the two pieces that come to my mind, because I'm a French hornist, are the second movement of Strauss's Second Horn Concerto and Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony Slow Movement Horn Solo. Now, these are two of the most beautiful pieces ever written for my instrument, the French horn. And I'm just imagining that I have the honor to play them in front of an audience. And my whole thing is, aren't I awesome? Like, aren't I just so great that I'm nailing this? Like, what service am I doing to those beautiful lines of music, those beautiful melodies that Tchaikovsky wrote or that Strauss wrote in these cases? Like, how am I serving the music with that kind of mindset, right? So the problem with perfection is that it's subjective, it's out of your control, it's boring, it's not sufficient, and it's completely selfish when you look at it. So none of this means that we don't strive for excellence, and striving for excellence is a very different goal than being perfect, right? So striving for excellence and being our best selves in the job is something we absolutely want to do. And if you're coming from that egoic place of, I just need to be the best because I need to hear the applause and I need everybody to know that I'm perfect, that's really a function of deep insecurity and fear at the end of the day. So you have to ask yourself, like, do I really want to build my career and put in the hours that's necessary for me to become a professional musician from that place of insecurity and fear? Do I really want all of this to be about stroking my own ego because I don't have anything else going on, or all my self-esteem is wrapped up in what I'm doing? It's just not, it's not fun, right? And it's not going to be a recipe for a healthy career. So let's talk about it not being fun. So I I think we've all been around people, if we're artists, right? We have those people, and I'm one of them. I hope I'm one of them, who, if we just make a mistake or something doesn't go right, we just kind of take a deep breath and we note it and we say, you know what? I'm gonna spend some time thinking about how that could have gone better after this performance. But right now, I'm gonna stay in the moment and I'm gonna serve the music and do what I need to do, right? And I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it because everybody in the orchestra heard it, right? Or everybody in the pit, or everybody on the bandstand, or wherever it is that I'm playing. I don't need to highlight, right? And then we have those colleagues who miss a note and they might pound their fist if they're French horn players or trumpet players, literally beat themselves up as during the concert. They might mutter something under their breath. They might be in a really foul mood at intermission. None of that helps or undoes whatever happened. And it doesn't create any kind of positive energy for you and your colleagues to finish the rest of the performance or to continue with the tour or to do whatever you need to do. And in my experience, perfect people are less preferable to happy and at least even keeled people, right? So if you're the perfectionist who might be at the top of your game, but you completely drive your colleagues mad because every time you make a mistake, you make everybody around you miserable because you're beating yourself up so much over it. You're less likely to succeed than the person who might just be able to make the mistake and live with it and just be a great person to be around. So again, a lot of what we're talking about is who we are as much as what we do. So if you have this affliction to perfectionism, what is the antidote? Well, I'm going to say the antidote is whatever your mission is. And it is not goals, right? It transcends goals. So let's go back and say that my mission is to be perfect. I'm going to put myself in that negative example that I just outlined. So this is a true life story. I played a show called Miss Saigon. It's a Broadway show written by the same team that wrote Les Mis, and it's the Madame Butterfly story transposed to Vietnam. And it was quite a taxing show for the winds and brass, lots and lots of pages of music, not a lot of rest. And I played it on and off for about 4 years. Now, I did have some downtime where I would do other work, or the show would be in a city that hired only local musicians and I would get some time off. So I'm gonna say on average that I did 360 shows a year for about 4 years. And that totals about, let's say, 1,440 performances. So in the 4 year period, I probably played Miss Saigon 1,440 times. Now there was one show, I don't actually remember it now. I don't remember what the city was, but I remember there was one show at the end, I said to myself, you know what? I didn't miss a note the entire show. Like, I actually had a perfect show. And I was kind of like really celebrating that with myself. But if you look at it, if that was my goal, if my goal every day was to be perfect, if that was my mission, then one performance out of 1,440 is less than 0.1% of the time. So let's say that when you fulfill your mission as an artist or as a musician or as an athlete or whatever you do in life, if you're only fulfilling your mission 0.1% of the time. How happy could you possibly be, right? So I was fulfilling my mission 0.1% of the time if my mission was perfection. So if you think about it, you think 10,000 hours, 6 years, 2 degrees, and after all of that, my average is 0.1% of the time in fulfilling my mission of being the perfect artist, right? Well, here's the good news. The good news is that I get paid either way, right? Nobody fired me. Nobody said horrible show after every performance. Everybody was like, everybody was doing their best in my job. Everybody sounded great. And I got paid either way, right? So I didn't give my money back to the company because I didn't have a perfect show for 1,439 performances. I didn't say, you know what, I was not my best. I don't deserve to get paid, right? I said, you know what, my goal here is to serve the music. And I did my best tonight, as did all my other colleagues around me. And people clapped regardless of whether I was perfect or not. And again, 0.1% of the time was I perfect. So what is the alternative if your mission is not to be perfect? Well, I think broadly, you want your mission to be something that serves the world through music, if music is your art form. And what is it that makes a mission healthy versus a goal, right? So my goal might be to play a perfect show, right? Well, you know what? It's fine. I didn't do it tonight. I'm not going to do it a lot of nights in a row, apparently, if I look back at my history. But that's not my mission, right? And a healthy mission is not about you, first of all. It's not about what you do. It's who you are when you're doing it. And your mission isn't ego driven, it's selfless. It's also going to be honest and it's going to have integrity, right? It's who you are. And it's something that's in your control, right? So if your mission is to win an audition, that's not something that's in your control. You're going to drive yourself crazy because the audition committee decides who wins the audition. The only thing that's in your control is to be true to yourself, to honor the hours that you've put in, and to present yourself as best you can, right? And those are things we can achieve. We have control of those things. We can say, you know what, I'm gonna allow myself to be the best musician today and honor the music that I'm gonna be offering to this committee. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity, versus going and saying, you know what, I'm gonna be perfect, I'm gonna beat everybody else, right? You can't control that, that's out of your control. The only thing that you control, again, is who you are and the person you are and the values that you have when you do what you do. So again, if my mission in Miss Saigon was to be perfect, I was perfect 0.1% of the time. Not a great average. I was probably miserable 1,339 performances out of 1,440, if that was my mission, right? But if my mission was instead to serve the world through music, to strive to be my best, to make my colleagues shine, right? This was my mission. My mission was to say, you know what? I'm playing this show for audiences and we want to give them the best we can possibly do. And the best thing that I can do as a second French horn player is to make the first French horn player and everybody around me shine. Again, that was something I could control. It was something I could do. And more importantly, if I wasn't perfect, it didn't matter because I could still fulfill that mission. So this has just been my little talk about the poison of perfection, how we can push past it, and think about your mission not being necessarily a goal that's out of your control, but something which is in your control, which is who you are and the person you are when you show up and how you serve music and the composer and the colleagues, right, that you work with. I appreciate your time. Looking forward to bringing some guests on in future episodes. And I'm going to sign off for now. Look for us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, and Leave a comment if you found this useful. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.